All right, welcome everybody to the Freedom Formula Podcast. My name is Josh Payne. We're here to dive deep into the world of success, financial success, entrepreneurship, and today we have an extraordinary guest with us, Neil Gerfein. Neil has over 29 years of experience in the financial industry and has achieved remarkable success, career earnings over $26 million, generating over $2 million a year in passive income. He's developed 3 direct $1 million plus earning brokers in his business, leads an agency of 6,000 licensed agents, is recognized with the exclusive recognition in the company of Circle of Champions. Neil's journey from Glendora, California is nothing short of inspiring. Get ready to uncover the secrets to his success and learn how you too can achieve financial independence and success. Let's get started. Neil Gerfein, welcome to the call, man. You are a hero of mine and somebody that I've just admired for a very long time. So I'm excited to have you on the show today.
I appreciate that, Josh. I'm excited as well. I think what you're doing is a big deal, more ways than one, just kind of getting like a crystal clear, just first impression of just how to win in American business and how to win in life, man. And it's just constantly special to represent or share some philosophy.
Yeah, tell me why you think that's so important in today's world, to have this opportunity to mastermind with successful people like yourself.
Well, I just think like the way the world is right now, the duplication of success, it's just principles that are not taught in school. They're principles of just adversity and responding correctly and persevering and realizing that you're on track, that you're getting to get the proper description for the diagnosis of, oh, I went through that perspective somehow, some way in that scenario dynamic, and this is how I responded. And I just don't think there's enough individuals out there that have that perspective to help an average person to become more extraordinary of just belief level, confidence, and self-esteem in regards of winning and being bigger than the problem.
Wow. So well said. And you can see if you're tuning in here at the magnitude of this show today, it's going to be incredible here over the next few minutes. Neil, I want to start before all the success, before all the recognition, before all the income. Tell us who Neil Gerfein was and the journey to who he is today.
I just think, when you hear you're a product of the environment, I think that's a positive thing. And that's a positive thing because what's negative is the best lessons, in the home we grew up in, and my mom and dad were married for 30 years. I have an older sister, and I just think like the way things were, the way dysfunctional perhaps things were, the choices that my father made or choices that perspective was, or my mom, you kind of take the best, leave the rest. And I've always just kind of been a person that just kind of likes to make people feel good, make people laugh, kind of that perspective. And one thing I always learned was like from like my mom putting belief in me is never to quit. You know what I'm saying? You're not better than anybody and nobody's better than you, but just like you're not going to quit. You're the one that's not going to quit. You're not going to quit camp. You're not going to quit baseball. You're not going to quit whatever sport you're playing. You're not going to quit. And I think like that was something that always kind of got me through hard times in life, that that perspective kind of made me feel a little more special. And Josh, what's funny is I had dyslexia growing up. I kind of, my brain was working faster in the 70s. I didn't understand that was a positive entrepreneur perspective, right? But my brain was working a little faster than others, and I'd come home and kids would laugh at me in school or this or that, and just kind of way things were. And my mom would be like, "Oh, you don't understand. You're special. These things are happening for a reason. You don't realize how smart you are. And that's what matters, is we're going to get things right for you." And I think like those embarrassing low self-esteem, go find a hole and crawl under that rock. I kind of went and reversed paranoid towards it and faced that music and took that in stride. And it kind of subconsciously was building confidence for me that a serious situation became an ace in the hole.
Wow. And growing up, I know athletics was a big thing for you. You're an athlete, played football, baseball. Talk to me about how that contributed to your success perhaps today, just the experience as an athlete.
Yeah, I just think like because of sports, because of that, I was able to stay on the right path, on the right road. Like I started hanging around the right kind of friends in my perspective that, we weren't doing drugs or we weren't drinking or whatever was around us. We kind of rose above it because we are able to play over the line, or we are able to play wiffle ball, or we were able to play if it was on a concrete two-hand touch, or we can go to a high school in the area and play tackle football. And that took us through times of where we would see other people not make those choices and would go a different path. And so I think sports, and then playing with a coach in organized sports, being coached up and being part of a team and just that camaraderie was kind of special in me. And, where you could have done more, or you could have been better, or those things kind of started planting seeds for me in life where, I could have tried harder. I could have done those kind of things. Certain things came really easy for me with my inner confidence, but it wasn't applied anywhere. Like when
Mm.
I met my wife, Victoria, okay, I met Victoria in 1988, okay, and I realized like I had a lot of confidence, but I had no direction. Okay. And so as we were growing up and I met Victoria, we kind of came together, and we were already like a young partnership working on ourselves, enjoying each other. And then, we found our business, and it was just unbelievable.
Wow. And in terms of coming up and into your professional career, tell me, before you had your business, what did you do before that?
Well, I was a supervisor at UPS for 3.5 years. I got hired on as LA County Sheriff in July of '92, and between myself and 249 cadets were all employed, and that was a defining moment in my life because I realized I couldn't rely on a system or another human being. You know, we're looking at my evaluation. Like I worked really hard at UPS, like really hard to get those positions, and then I gave it up a month notice to get into an academy, and then the head sheriff back then said there's no funds for the state of California, and that was in '93, and now it's 2024, and there's still no funds for the state of California. So I realized like I might be the right driver, but that's just the wrong vehicle. And so I ended up getting a job at like 23 years of age. I ended up getting a job at WW Granger. It's an industrial wholesale warehouse. And I was making $13.08 an hour, $3.91 every Friday, employee number 4777, and just about convinced I can never do better. And I worked really hard there as well for those 2 years. You know what I'm saying? And I just kind of started learning a lot about myself. And then was funny is that an individual had a huge influence in my life and my childhood, you know, got impact across the kitchen table on some concepts and referred me to hear the same concepts. And that's what's unique about how opportunity is, Josh, is that it's disguised in overalls. We never identify it goes through our front door or our back door before we even knew it was for us. And it was because of a credibility of an individual that I looked up to deeply. I had my guard down, so which meant that when I went into the opportunity and when I went into looking at everything, I was open minded because he was already at it. He already was impacted. So that's kind of how opportunity works. It really it works that way. God's special, and thoughts are prayers, and He's always listening. And it's just funny how it's presented to you. And I was very fortunate.
In a million years, did you ever think it was going to be your career legacy and business and all the success would come out of the financial industry?
You know, it's unique that you say that because I think the fuse was lit, the plant was seed when I saw my parents struggle financially. I mean, they filed bankruptcy twice. They lost all their retirement income of $125,000 at one time. I thought was all the money in the world, and it is. And it lit the fuse right here. My mom cried at night, and they were devastated. And my father had to go sell cars at 48 years of age and pass away of a massive heart attack at 55 on the lot. And I realized like I'm not Morris the cat. I ain't got 9 lives to live, and like this is it. And I read a book called Think and Grow Rich that says you only get one or two opportunities in your life. Is this going to be your first or your last? And so when I saw the opportunity, I really realized like if this is real, if this business opportunity, if this understudied program is really real, wow, like wow, like it's so amazing. Like when people look at business opportunities, Josh, it could be the right vehicle, but are they the right driver? And in my perspective, I think I was the right driver. I just didn't know what a vehicle was. And so that emerging growth and sticking around and starting to understand the philosophies of what to say, how to say, when to say, basically to increase our value in the marketplace, we started to understand that principle. We understood that in order to get more, you need to become more. And so there was a power of association. It's just important power of disassociation. So you'd see me say, if everybody's going broke this way, we need to start going this way. It's not that we're better than anybody, but the interest, the vortex of abundance, the arena of arena demands the universe to get around a different ambitious group of people. Not saying others weren't ambitious, but at that moment, you want to understand that you're going to go where people are having success and have philosophy that could help you. And I think that's why your show is so important, because it can give people hope and be light at the end of the tunnel of, understanding that if you work a job, you can make a living, but if you could work on yourself, you'll make that fortune. And it's the working on yourself part that people need to understand. Like, behind closed doors, the little things that they do show up in the big picture. And in that part, I think people don't understand because of rejection or jadedness or the word no, or just they build it and it falls down like a deck of cards. And they don't realize that you're on track. And hey, we went through that as well. And this is how we responded. And I think the power of responding correctly under pressure allows you to move your campaign down the field, like another first down on a football field, to get to the red zone, to the end zone. And I think that part's so important that I realized that my opportunity and the principles of it, it's priceless. Like you hear, like Jim Rome says, it's not the million you make, but the person you become in the process. And we were growing so much that the income was following eventually, but it wasn't about the money. It's about that greatness. And it took a little time of maturity to understand what greatness was. And that part was pretty powerful and rewarding.
I love what you said, and I think so many people miss opportunity because they're not aware, they're not prepared for it, they're not aware that it exists for people like us. And maybe somebody like that is watching today, and for somebody who's out there, they're unhappy where they're at. And I think that that is more prevalent today than ever, Neil, and
Yeah.
you and I both see that all the time. What would be some advice you would have for somebody that's maybe coming to the awareness that, wow, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there is more for me, and it's going to be different than where I'm at right now and the people I'm surrounding with. What would be some advice you'd give that person that's watching right now?
I think the word defining moment is a special perspective, because people every day forget their defining moments. And so when people are disturbed enough, they're humiliated enough, they're frustrated enough, it allows them to kind of release the brakes on worrying what people think. And I think when they can release the brakes on worrying what people think, they're in a new perspective of philosophy, and they're ready to instill like wisdom. They're ready to take on a new adventure, and things that would bother them in the past suddenly kind of don't bother them as much, which means they're creating some tough skin, right? The tough skin of where they're headed and what they've been through, and sharing that and being transparent about it in their own conscious mind. And they start to understand that they're starting to attract things. They're starting to attract good things, like that law of attraction. And I think those perspective is, what you think about most grows. So when you're working on yourself and you're adding value and you're self-improving, and you're going to workshops, and you're going to seminars, and you're around other ambitious people, and some of them perhaps have more success in their businesses than you do, that's a blessing. That's where you realize, don't hate, celebrate, because like we've never been peanut butter and jelly of anybody's success, Josh, because we've known how hard we worked to accomplish the things that we've accomplished. So that establishes a worthiness. And when you have the worthiness, you're able to look others in their eyes and play a role. Like, I'll be Christopher Columbus. You look in my eyes, you'll see sand, because I'm never going to ask you to do anything we haven't done or continue to do. And that might make other people a little uncomfortable, but it's a proper heartbeat. And when you bring on a voluntary army of other human beings that are ambitious, that want to win, it's very easy to help them transition from a W-2 into entrepreneurship. It's very inspiring to get somebody to go from 40 years of work into 10. And for an individual like myself, or in any business model, you're carrying an emotional load uh, that's going to be judged every day. You're going to be carrying an emotional load for others, that you're going to believe in them more than they believe in themselves. You're going to carry that emotional load of your immediate family and then your extended family. And I think like that part's pretty important, because you can't throw stones at it when you live in a glass home. And it's very important to understand that. And so I think it's a constant day of continual improvement, I think like, self-improvement's like putting gas in a vehicle. You know what I'm saying? I think like you're adding always a positive thought to eliminate a negative thought. And as you get to new levels of your success, as you get into new levels of your success, you got to continue to add value and the established worthiness of the adversity an individual go through, or like the adversity that Victoria and I have gone through and how we've responded correctly just allowed us to continue to just charge. And it got more exciting and it got more adventurous because we're able to do those perspective and we would be like, man, that's it. That's like, and we're going to be huge. We're going to be huge. And because we had the right people in our stands, Josh, the right people that have gone through it, that believed in us, that would always be the right message for us. It kept things a lot more kind of like a safe haven in our own little cocoon as we were just kind of growing. And I would tell people as an analogy, and I use a lot of them, but I'd say like Victoria and I are on a boogie board in a pool, and we're just going to go like this, and a bunch of waves are going to create. And that's what we would always talk about. Like, we're going to always lead from the front. We'll never ask you to do something we haven't done because we're constantly lighting ourselves on fire and everybody's excited about the waves. And it has been fun to do that for many years, right? And so when you mentioned 29 years, I just go, wow, man, this is crazy how fast it's gone, man. I mean, I joined at 24, I'm 35. I mean, it's crazy, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so fun, to kind of show each other like what we're doing off the field, it's so cool, right? And we just get that enthusiasm vibe again. And I think like people need to realize like you take your 5 best friends in income, and that's exactly what you are. And it's not that you're better than anybody, but when you move on to a new arena, you need to get around, more successful people so you can continue to strive to have success as well. And you get a good instinct, you get a good judgment that people, you have wolves, you have sheep, people just like sheep are really wolves. And you get that instinct as you kind of lead from the front and have your heart on your sleeve. And, you're kind of always transparent about like, well, this is where things are at, this is where we're going, and kind of carrying that emotional load and putting that belief in people like, oh man, piece of cake, I've been through that, woo, 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 you're going to be okay. And I think that part right there is character.
Mm.
I think that's character, and in that endorsement of like character, you just you can't compromise. In my business, our business, when it comes to doing what's right, we've never compromised one increment of that because it's long lasting, everlasting. Now I'm a human being, I'm human, okay? Right? But when it comes to the perspective of doing what's right, we've like high level character of making sure this is going to be here, 15, 20, 30, 40 years from now. And I think that part right there, people can take pride in and get excited about the foundation that they're going to plant their flag and attract multiple other human beings to do the same with them. And I think that part right there is why what we do is so special. It's so special across the kitchen table for the consumer to the gratification of emerging leaders that are growing around you.
Man, love it. Absolutely. Neil, people see you today, they see this prolific speaker speaking on stages in front of 50,000 people inside the Mercedes-Benz Arena stadium and all around the country. But I know that's not the Neil that first started this business,
Right.
that came into this business. So we see the end product. What was that transformation? What were the key points to that transformation over your career that have led you to be the leader you are today, and perhaps that separated you from everybody else in your success because of what you did to grow yourself into who you are today?
Genuality, I think there is a perspective that we never forgot where we came from, right? So I think the bigger the adversity, the bigger the price, the bigger the prize. But the prize really was to be relentless, to never let up, to continue to fight the fight, to continue to attract people with the right indomitable spirit, continue to just, inspire others. Like, I'll give you an example and I'll kind of come full circle, but you can't change anybody. But as long as you continue to change, or as long as you change, others get inspired, right? So I realize it's an inspiring business, right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, people make a lot of money. Okay, great. But when you start to have personal story and testimony of what you used to do and why you're doing this, now it's become real. And it's become real for the average person. It's become real for the individual, and it's become real. And I think that part is important. So to really clarify the perspective, I think like we made so many tough decisions through the adversity and the prices that we paid. Like it was just like we could just want to pay that forward, Josh. Like, there's just like this is what God, I made a promise to God that I was going to help middle class America in general become debt free and financially independent by our example. And I think like that's a lifestyle, but it's because of the things that we've gone through, seeing my parents file bankruptcy twice, lose everything that they had my mom start all over, hearing my mom cry at night. My dad passed away, and looking at my wife Victoria's, being born in Mexico and her parents being immigrants here, and to see how hard my mother-in-law were. All these things just started to make sense as we were growing up together in the business and realizing that, life's not fair. And, there were times where I remember like we were working harder than most in our office, and, there would always be like this one slide, this one part of the president, would be this one part of the op night that I always like to talk at because I was leading that area. And some for some reason I didn't speak that part at that time. And I was like, man, that's not fair. I'm not working everybody. I mean, what's going on? And I had this one slide and it was about something, and Victoria said, you don't get it, Neil. Like that one slide, everybody's on the edge of their seat. You don't get it. There's no small parts, only small actors. You're better than that, and it's little things like that, or I brought somebody into the business and I'm pouring my heart into them, and you're going to be huge, you're going to be unbelievable. And the Victoria and I are spreading ourselves around, making them feel special. And then they go into witness protection program. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, oh my God, what happened? I was just over there and they were excited. And, I just didn't understand certain things because I realized, if I had the right people at that moment share things with me, it would have been a lot more at ease of that perspective, because at one time, like a lot of individuals, you're going to feel alone. And I realized a doctor cannot operate on themselves. As great as they are as a doctor, they cannot operate on themselves. So you got to trust other people around you. And that's a huge part too, Josh, is that people struggle with trust. They've been jaded when they're younger, things happen to them. And when you lose trust, very rarely you can get it back. And so that goes back to the high character part that I would say, like, we're never going to be the reason why you're not successful. We're going to be the reason that you are. And it was never about the money, as we achieved great things, it was always about that fundamental of how hard it was to get our rocket ship to break gravity, Josh. It was that part of how hard it was to create and retain and maintain the momentum, that price that it took for that trade-off of the momentum for others to see what we see and feel what we feel is a special perspective. And when you start to transition to that kind of perspective, you become the marketplace. You become the marketplace in what you do. And that part is the most rewarding, gratifying thing that there is. Like you take Michael Jordan, he was cut in 10th grade for varsity basketball. And he's the greatest basketball player to ever put on high tops. Like, I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's been retired for 20 plus years and his shoes still the number one shoe sold in the industry. But he was cut in 10th grade. There's not one person in his whole family that's taller than 5'9". Okay. And he has a brother that was better than him at one time. And so a lot of times people need to know that, one, God's good, but this is where God wants you to be. And once you're at peace with that, then it's time to open up the gift that God's given you. And you will never know what those gifts are, right, until you're in a position, right, with an opportunity and God gives you that adversity. You go through the adversity, and how you respond to that is when one gift shows up. And as you respond to another pressure or another dynamic, or someone putting a finger in your face, or someone rolling their eyes at you, or someone's gossiping or chisme, or like when you're in a room of 100 people, Josh, and you stick your head up, who do they want to throw rocks at? And so just understand that all good gets attacked. That's Jim Rome. And I,
Right,
I think, well, I'm a good person. How can they do that? And it's because you're a good person. That's why they do that, right?
right.
And and so that's the kind of like waves hitting you, and you're in the ocean. You're trying to go deeper in the ocean, and waves keep hitting you, and you think you can get through, and another wave goes, and you dive under, and it's like so brutal. And you wake up, and it's all salt. Or wake up, you get up, and you open your eyes, and it's all salt in your face, and you get through. And then there's a little seaweed to come at you, and then you kick a rock, and you're like, is that a rock or what is that, right? And you just got all this blind faith out there, and then you look back, you're too deep, you want to go back, and then a wave hits you, and you're doing 19 somersaults, and you're laying on the sand like, I'm never going to go out there again. And it's kind of the same thing in business. It's like, it's just like, thank you, sir, can I have another? Thank you, sir, can I have another? Right?
Absolutely. Man, that what a good that is that is business, right? Right when you figure out it was only a rock, then you get knocked by a wave and it rolls you back up to the sand. When it was like that for you in your career, right? Because it wasn't always the way it is today, where
Yeah,
man, it just is, it grows without you. You couldn't stop it if you wanted to.
yeah.
But when it was just you and Victoria, what are some of the things from a mindset perspective you use to just continue pushing forward and you and have that blind faith that it was all going to work out, that God had that in store for you? What did you use to just keep on pushing?
I think it would be we would be in a position together, and we were multiple things, but we would first say, like, in perspective, like it'd be like 1, 2 in the morning, be like, who else would want to go through this? Who else is going to go through this? We're going to be big. Look, we're going to be successful. If this is the worst it's going to be, we got this. Like, who else is willing to do this? Who else has the courage and guts to do this? And we started getting inner confidence, right? And another thing is, through those tough times, our relationship grew like crazy because of communication. So all my weaknesses and strengths were exposed, and so were Victoria's. So we started to understand how to kind of unite together, persevere together, and have a partnership together that, like, if I was down, she was always up, or she was down, I was always up. And we worked on each other's weaknesses, right? So we'd capitalize on our strengths as we worked on our weaknesses daily. And so we became very coachable together and became very effective in the marketplace of opening up hope and opportunity for others to come and have a lot of success, because a leader isn't measured how good he is, but who else he duplicates, right? It doesn't really matter how much income we make, who else makes income. And I think
Right.
that part is the duplication, that we kind of just bought into. Like, we're gonna 24/7, 365, 7 days a week, swag duplication. We're just gonna duplication, duplication, duplication. And as we continued to persevere, Josh, we started creating significant business maturity, just
Hmm.
significant business maturity. And it's
And
like we
that
can handle multiples.
and that duplication, when you say that, I would imagine that that is a combination of example that you set forth and teaching and training people to do what you do. And talk to me just briefly, just a little bit about that. What, because it seemed like a really important point when you say 24/7, 365 swag duplication, right?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, we bought into the lifestyle. We bought into, taking 40 years of work into 10. We bought into the end in mind, doing what's right, making sure we're really touching the heart for the hand with people, that we can keep it simple. Like, I read early on, like, a true genius takes something completely complicated and break it down to increments of the simple. And I go, I can do that. I can do that. I can explain what we do, how we do, why we do, in their internal inception way, in their personality way, in their dynamic way. And I got pretty effective of understanding people's strengths and weaknesses with communication and their personalities, and just keeping it simple for others to go, I can do this. Oh, that's easy. Right. And so, like for an example, we just came off a really awesome big event, right? And I was talking to some of the key leaders there, and I said, look, you understand something about Victoria and I is, like, when we do a big event, yeah, everybody's going to join. But when we do a big event, they're all going to get trained too, right? People are going to get very excited here. But more importantly, everybody that comes aboard, including everybody that's already in, are going to quit their job in their mind. And when people quit their job in their mind, that's when the creation starts. That's when the universe starts to work. That's the secret. And they start to understand that they're not paid with their worth, they're paid with the job's worth. And then they start to get a little more excited to understand, or curious to understand, how to increase their value in the marketplace. You know what I'm saying? how to add more value for others. And I think that servant leader perspective, is that we can serve and help people get what they want so we can get what we want, kind of thing. And it's deep, but it's rewarding.
Man, no doubt you have created that environment. You've created that duplication. You've got 6,000 licensed agents. You've got so many very successful from a monetary standpoint. A lot of people making a lot of money, several earning over $1 million a year in passive income. Um, what are some of the characteristics that you have witnessed in those that you have mentored and trained down the same journey as you that have separated them from everybody else?
I think it's a principle like I'm going to learn from you as much as you're going to learn from me. And so as you get like a mastermind together and you get like a group thinking together, you start to becoming even more effective because they're going to bring so much value more to a business, to their business, because they already have talent before they join an opportunity. They already have talent. They've got life experience. They've had other jobs. They've had other achievements. So there's a word ambition there. So then it's just a matter of helping them kind of paradigm shift change into the opportunity here and let them know that they're going to be okay and just you're going to be good, you're doing great things, and that transition is the wisdom. The
Mhm.
transition to help people get in is a wisdom perspective of like, a lot of people can't handle that kind of connection part of strong personalities joining your business because Josh, you're always going to attract who you are. Ethnic size, gender's perspective, you're always going to track that ambitious perspective because everybody has a different personality to a certain extent, right? Or strengths and weaknesses, but the ambition makes everybody better when you have a good environment. Chemistry, kind of like when we're playing sports.
Yeah.
If that locker room chemistry is good, yeah,
So
we're gonna, yeah.
that's a great point you just brought up because you have built an organization that has an incredible amount of chemistry and strong team culture. And how have you fostered that over the years?
I feel like there's been number one, we've been great students of what we do. Like we've been great students of other fellow peers that have had significant success before us, and right, they've been able to have more success before us, and we've been able to look at that, to hear and understand from that, and to learn from them via not just close but from a distance, Josh. And it made us love it that much more. You know what I'm saying? Because we did it on our merit, we achieved it on our merit. Like that part is the most rewarding part of it all, and that thing no one can ever take from you. And that's what I loved about the business so much that I do is like, we work hard, we get paid what we're worth. We promote ourselves, like we control our success. And I think, but self-motivation's a myth. See, like if you had a friend talk to you the way you talk to yourself, you would probably kill that person, right? So, being part of a winning environment and getting kind of the right kind of transparent information does hold on deep in the subconscious mind when things aren't going so good, when it's not so sunny, when it is your lowest despair moment or you're extremely emotional. And I think with great leadership, one way or another, when you're very emotional is when you make your worst decisions, and tiredness makes cowards out of all of us, right? So when you're in those perspective, great leadership can let an individual know, hey, at ease, you're good. We've been through that storm. You know what I mean? I'm going to play Lieutenant Dan with you. We're going to get through the storm, and we're going to have our Jenny boat, and we're going to have all the Bubba Gump shrimp. Like it's going to happen for you. You know what I'm saying? It's inevitable. Your attitude's right. Your gratitude's right. You're doing all the right things. This is necessary that you're going through this part of the journey because you're going to have worthiness when you're making huge money in your life. You understand? So it's the prices you pay that you appreciate your success. And then there's always a fear factor that's a blessing, that you're playing scared all the time. That fear factor, I'm uncomfortable, my blood's burning. That fear factor keeps an individual young if they treat it right, if they appreciate it right, if they nourish it right, if they protect their thinking right. And those things are so important. Like when you're around a negative person all the time, Josh, they're just kryptonite to you being Superman or woman. You know what I mean? It doesn't make a difference who it is. If they're just constantly in your ear, they're in front of you and they're negative all the time, it's just a matter of time before, that kryptonite just penetrates. And, it's an individual's free will and choice to eliminate that. Doesn't mean you're
Mhm.
better than it, but it's just like it's just kind of like that. Like, how, those dynamics. So
Yeah, 100%. You know, I think it leads me into the next couple of questions as we sort of bring it down to a close here, and that is, I just would love your perspective on how your success and how everything you've accomplished has had an effect on your sons. Not monetarily, obviously, they get to live a great life, but what do you think the most important impact has been for your sons, who I know you adore greatly and great athletes and following in Pop's footsteps there? What's that impact been for them in watching you and Victoria put together such a successful business?
Um, I feel like the will to never give up. You know what I mean? Like I look at my older son, is a good athlete. He even played college football, ran into some adversity, got a couple concussions in a very short period of time and, kind of had some sad situations happen and kind of was in a psychosis for a while. And we got scared and kind of took the time because we had the freedom to find out with the best neurologist in the world what was going on. And what I did see from that, and that was a very big defining moment, okay, is that he had the will to never quit. Just wants to still like make us proud, make me proud. Like I see it, I hear it. The way he looks at me, like he just refuses to give up. And because of that, today he trusts that fact, like who we are, and and he's at peace because he's never given up. A lot of people that will go through that, Josh, honestly, they don't recover. You know what I'm saying? They don't recover. And to see how far he's come because of our example, because he was a tripod with us, like he was a tripod with us. So yeah, he was that guy in the car seat, in the back seat with Victoria and I on the phone with somebody, or, our conversations with a purpose, right? During the
Mhm.
adversity times, during the tough times. And so he he understands those principles. So when the adversity hit him without permission and it uppercutted him and us, he was just really he's just a great attitude individual that just takes it on and just continues to move forward. And it's become to a point, Josh, where he's inspired me, to
Wow.
not feel inspired for myself on times on things,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Wow, powerful, man. And your youngest coming up, uh, going to the next level as an athlete right now. And we were talking before we started just on some of the awesome experiences you're having with that. How do you see it impacting him as he's progressing to that next stage of playing college athletics and
Yeah. It's just like we're talking about, like, it comes a stage when, you're just dad. Like I said, my son Nico was just in kind of the tripod era of things. And then here comes our son Diego, and he's emerging in what he enjoys to do. And it just like the more I could see, in essence, of his maturity as he continues to mature in his profession today, what he's doing, he will definitely go to the next level. And you know, the perspective of it all, like, like the playing baseball or so, like this, my perspective of it is that, is it MLB? It's more he has the worthiness for it, right? He's right, and it'll lead to bigger things, essence of life too, principle and business, and being a great young man, and all these things come with that. And this second time around, the maturity that I think his mother and I have to understand his quiet high and lows and his pressures, bases loaded 3-2, bottom of the ninth kind of thing. And I think if you could wake up dreaming for that situation versus being on the bench and being
Mm,
scared to death of that situation, is the free will choice of life.
Wow.
And I always, when I got into the business I was in, I always manifest being bases loaded, 3 and 2, bottom of the ninth.
Wow. 100%. 100%. Two more questions for you, Neil. Just have enjoyed this so much. And I think that there's just so much value that's being shared. And I hope people can listen to this over and over and over, because I know I've done that with every one of your audios I've got my hands on over the years, which has given me such an appreciation for the way that you think, the way that you lead, the way that you've built your business and your life and your family, both you and Victoria, who is extraordinary, to say the least, for
Thank you.
herself as well. Looking back on your career, what would you say some of the most rewarding aspects were today, looking back, right? Because I think when we get started, we have a perspective of what the dream is and what we want, but it can look a lot different when we look back and connect the dots as far as what are those rewarding aspects of being as successful as you have over your career.
There was times when we were going through something like, right, and we didn't sign up for it. And we would think this is like the most devastating thing that there is. Like, oh my gosh, like human beings and just in general, like just things that would just surface, or it just things were like very difficult at times. And we started to say, okay, like, look, when we get through this, it's over. Like, and we started to kind of put a price tag on it. Like, this one's worth 100 grand. And if we respond correctly and get through this, and we
Mm,
started to think a little crazy, right? And it would
mhm,
just kind of continue us to weeble wobble forward. You know what I'm saying? And that was just one of many principles, you know what I mean? And as we just started getting tougher skin and seeing things, it went from getting in someone's face to just knowing they're doing that, and just knowing that that's just who they are and what they do, and it's not personal. It's
mhm.
not personal, because that individual is going to do that at their job. They were going to do that at their break room. They were going to do that at their barbecue. Okay. And I started to understand that. We started to understand that. And we became even more finesse. We even became more effective. And in the big picture, and I think if people continue to persevere enough and not doing anything just for paper, but they start to buy into the impact of greatness, there's a bigger picture for everything.
Wow. That's amazing. Love it. Last question here, Neil. And that is, with all of the success and all the experience that you have today, if you were to go back to your 20-year-old self when you met Victoria in Florentine Gardens, right? When the examples you give of that Neil back then, if you were to go back today, what advice, knowing what you know now, would you give to that Neil at 20 years old?
Oh man, that everything's going to be okay, that all these things that you're going to go through is worth it. It's supposed to be that way. You'll understand in time, but you'll trust your instincts, you know? Um, you know, choices you made, the trade-off, the unbalancedness is gonna, make you a better man. And, you know, it's just a special time when you think about it, Josh, like those things.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Neil, you're a legend to so many. And I don't say that for any other reason than I just, you know, praise is due where it's due. And you've had such an impact on our family, Tracy, myself, JP2 and Kira, both athletes that, we have used the principles that you have taught over the years in our parenting and coaching of our kids who are both, excelling athletes. And I just want you to know that your impact is valued and we appreciate it. And you've done one heck of a job, and we're excited for what's next. So what's next for Neil Gerfine moving forward, all the success you've had moving forward? What's the new chapter is going to look like?
I think that second mountain is like the most exciting part of life, that adventure. I just feel like, I've said to Victoria a few times, like, I think, we done dream boards when we were younger. And I'm like, I've hit a lot of these, like chicken soup for the soul. He said, you put it on a dream board. And it's like, man, I've accomplished a lot of things, in a humble way. I've been able to experience things, do things. And I was going to say something about when you asked me earlier about what would you tell your younger self? And I just want to share this. Like, yeah, it's kind of weird, Josh, but ever since I was little, like I always feel like I had all the pieces. I always felt, even with the dyslexia and the three teachers that I have at elementary school, because I had to go sit in a special room and, read, Sam I Am Again, you know what I mean? And, I just always felt like I had the pieces. And because I was a late bloomer, I'd go in a room and other personalities, and I'd just be a big fan of them. But I always had this inner confidence, Josh. So I knew when I found what I wanted to do, it just came natural. And you look at different things in life, but that might not be what the calling is subconsciously. I can't explain it to you, Josh, but when I hit the business, man, crushed it. Just became like obsessed about it, insane about it, like genuine about it, transparent about it, but just kind of on the rooftop screaming that I want to win.
Mm.
And it's okay to be that person. It's okay to be that enthusiastic. It's okay to be that relentless. And I think people feel like, we're told not to ask questions growing up, like, what do you do or what do you make, or when you're little to an adult. And you just get scared to ask that as you continue to grow up. But I think the more you ask questions, you shall receive, right? And I think, like in my business, they're constantly asking questions, you know what I mean, in the short, middle, long term. And it's just special. And it's just kind
Wow.
of like a whole cycle again of kind of like running track. If you ran around a football field, they'd call the paramedics right now, perhaps, for an individual. They're out of shape, right? But if you keep doing it, you start building an endurance, a mental endurance, a better self-talk of your conscience. And then you get like this whole perspective of yourself. And I think it's the same thing to start something new. You're scared to death. And, it's a great leader to help people transition to something new and feeling special and being able to run downhill because you broke down tropical trees to move mountains for people to come in.
Wow. Man, the world needs more Neil and Victoria Gerfine, no doubt about it, man. And I'm sure those chapter 2 vision boards are going to look a lot different than the chapter 1 vision board.
Right. And just, man, just so grateful. God's good. My
Yeah.
family's good. And it's awesome, Josh.
Man, we appreciate it, Neil. You've been amazing,
Thank you.
and we can't wait to see your continued success, continue to learn from you, and to watch the impact that you have on our country, because the world needs it. And we're just excited to have you on today. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Neil, for joining us. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode. It's going to be life-changing. God bless everybody.
Awesome.